Somewhere in early childhood, something invisible clicks into place. A silent agreement forms in the background of awareness. Then, one day, the idea may come up, quietly. This is me. That's the root. Not the face in the mirror, not the name, not the birthday. It's the acceptance of a point of view, a center, a location from which everything is seen and measured. Before this, life moved like wind through an open field. No boundaries, no commentary, just what was happening. Afterward, it's as if a camera angle is installed, and the wide open scene is suddenly interpreted from a fictional vantage point. That point is what's later called me. It sounds harmless enough, but once this artificial center is assumed, an entirely new layer is added to reality. Suddenly, experiences are not just events, they're happening to someone. And this someone feels incomplete. Why? Because it doesn't actually exist. A phantom can't feel whole. A thought can't find peace. So the system begins compensating. It looks for confirmation, satisfaction, resolution, permanence. And when it doesn't get it, which is often, emotion comes up. Not because of what's happening, but because it's happening to me. That's the hidden mechanism. A neutral situation becomes a problem the moment it's filtered through this artificial self-center. Not getting picked for the job. Now it's not just a hiring decision, it's rejection. Someone cuts off a car on the freeway? That's not just a traffic event, it's a personal insult. Anxiety before a presentation. Not just energy, it's fear about what they'll think of me. The emotional charge, that's just the tension created when reality doesn't match the expectations of a fictional character. Desire doesn't just show up randomly, it has a precise starting point, the sense of lack. The moment the body is taken to be me, a feeling of limitation shows up, not as a philosophical idea, but as a lived sense of being cut off, small, vulnerable, temporary. That limitation is not true, but it feels real because the identification is real in that moment. So the mind begins to fill the hole. The logic is simple, even if it's wrong. If I am not enough as I am, maybe I will be enough once I have that. That could be anything. Approval, wealth, security, a stable relationship, a healthier body. The form doesn't matter, the structure is always the same. I need in order to be complete. This is the root of longing. It's not about the object. The object just represents the end of lack. That's the emotional charge behind romantic obsession, achievement addiction, compulsive comparison. None of it is really about money or love or status. All of it is about the hope that something, anything, will finally cancel the feeling of being incomplete. So, why do emotions feel so personal? No emotion appears in a vacuum. Even something like irritation isn't just a mechanical glitch, it's based on a set of hidden assumptions. They should have acted differently. This shouldn't be happening to me. I can't handle this. Every emotional reaction carries an invisible tagline. This is happening to me. Without that tagline, it's not an emotion, it's a sensation. For example, a racing heart without fear is just an increased heartbeat. A wave of heat without shame is just body temperature. A rejection email without self-image is just pixels on a screen. What gives these events emotional weight is their connection to a believed self-image. Not the event itself, but what it means for me. It's a web of interpretations. But the interpretations only make sense if there's a stable self to protect. And yet, when that self is examined, it collapses. So how can we test this? It's quite simple. First, we wait for an emotion to show up. It doesn't have to be intense. Mild frustration will do. Then we ask, who is this happening to? But we don't answer intellectually, we're just looking. Is there really a center where this emotion lands? Or is it just energy moving in awareness? And lastly, we don't suppress or label the feeling. All we do is simply stripping away the storyline. No, he hurt me. No, this isn't fair. Just the raw sense, tightening in the chest, heat in the face, or pressure behind the eyes. Without the commentary, something unexpected happens. The emotion softens. It might not vanish instantly, but its hold weakens. Because without a me to wrap around, it has nowhere to go. But what about joy, or love, or inspiration? A fair question. Aren't those emotions too? Do they also come from illusion? Yes and no. Joy that requires a reason, like I got the job, is just pleasure wrapped around self-image. It fades when the job gets difficult or annoying. Love that depends on reciprocation is conditional. It hinges on me and you. Inspiration tied to success is just adrenaline in a costume. But there's something else. Joy that comes for no reason. Love that asks for nothing. Stillness that doesn't need quiet. Those aren't emotions in the usual sense. They're not reactions. They're qualities of presence when the subject is gone. They don't belong to anyone. They don't rise and fall based on outcomes. They emerge when the tension of self-referencing relaxes. In other words, when the false self disappears, what remains is not nothing, it's everything, without the baggage. This isn't abstract. It happens often. Moments when attention stops scanning for problems, when the internal commentator goes quiet. A person walking through the grocery store aisle might suddenly feel a wave of peace. Or while folding laundry, there's a strange sense of stillness. Not because of the activity, but because there's no me claiming the moment. These brief pauses are clues. They show that peace isn't something that needs to be achieved. It's already present, just hidden behind the noise of self-centered thinking. Sometimes the question comes up, if all emotion comes from the idea of a self, does that mean emotions are bad? Not at all. Emotions aren't enemies, they're messengers. Each one reveals something about the lens through which experience is being filtered. When anger spikes, it points to a story about injustice. When anxiety creeps in, it often traces back to a fear of losing control. These are not flaws, they're indicators. But they stop being helpful when they're seen as absolute truths, instead of reflections of belief. None of this requires effort in the traditional sense. There's nothing to achieve. What's being pointed to isn't a future state. It's already present, right here, underneath the activity of interpreting, analyzing, and self-referencing. The mind tries to fix what doesn't need fixing. It builds strategies to escape feelings that were never dangerous in the first place. All that's required is a subtle noticing. Noticing where emotion links to story, where story links to self-image, and where that self-image quietly dissolves when no one is feeding it. This doesn't take years, it takes one honest moment. What becomes clear in moments of honest reflection is that emotional intensity is not a reliable signal of truth, but of investment. The more deeply one identifies with a personal narrative, the more energy gets wrapped around it. That energy is felt in the body as anxiety, defensiveness, elation, grief, depending on whether the story is going well or badly. But remove the narrator and the plot loses traction. This explains why two people can react to the same event with entirely different emotions. One might feel insulted, the other indifferent. The difference isn't the event, it's how tightly each one clings to a sense of self that can be wounded. The emotions, then, aren't about reality. They're about the story that's playing inside. When this becomes obvious, something opens. Not through intellectual acceptance, but through actual recognition. The old narrative starts to seem less solid. Emotional reactions begin to fade on their own, not because they were fought, but because the root assumption holding them up no longer holds water. And in that softening, something else begins to reveal itself. Not a special state, not a euphoric high, just a quiet kind of clarity. A change from tension to ease, no longer caught in the push and pull of getting and avoiding, succeeding and failing. There is still movement, still choices, but they don't carry the same weight. They don't define anything. In everyday terms, this might look like less arguing, less chasing, less needing to prove a point. A conversation that once would have spiraled into conflict now just moves on. A perceived rejection doesn't become a crisis, it's just a message, nothing more. A delay or setback doesn't spark panic, it's simply what's happening now. This isn't indifference, it's absence of friction, and that absence is deeply sane. Not because some spiritual idea was believed, but because what wasn't true stopped being reinforced. The me that had to win, avoid, control, or be seen a certain way isn't driving the show. It may still appear, but it doesn't anchor the experience. Emotions still arise, but they pass like weather. Nothing sticks, nothing defines, nothing needs to be held. The center has dissolved, and what remains is what was always here, clear, spacious, untouched.